It's time for the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Powerful and liberating business strategies you can start in 5 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, Dean Soto.
Hey, this is Dean Soto, founder of freedomin5minutes.com and prosulam.com. And we're here again with another Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode. Today's topic is this: how to anticipate catastrophe and disaster in your business. That and more coming up. What is up? Great to see you. Great to hear you. Great to be here with you for another episode. So it's lots of crazy stuff as of recording this happening in the world, right? 2020 was pretty nutso. 2021 is looking to be even more nutso. And that being said, one of the things that is very important is being able to kind of forecast the future. You know, a lot of people during the early parts of 2020 were completely caught by surprise when they essentially had to shut everything down. Their business was built around a fixed location with fixed offices, with employees that had to come into the office, computers and servers that were in the office, and they were basically left high and dry, right? Same thing with restaurants. Shut down everything, only do to-go orders. Well, what about those restaurants that didn't have to-go? They had to figure out how to do catering, how to communicate with their clients. Did they have an email list? Did they have a social media presence? What did they have, right? Did they have anything that they could fall back on now that they were basically told that they cannot operate a restaurant anymore in the traditional way, right? Well, all that being said, we'll get to that in just a second. So as I'm looking at it, all of this stuff that's happening, I'm a pretty big conspiracy theorist. I love myself a good conspiracy. And so I'm looking at things and from the political landscape, from historical landscapes, and from all these different things. And I'm like, you know what? Living in the mountains, or living in the hills at least, puts you at a very interesting predicament, right? On the one hand, the cool thing is, for the most part, we control a lot of our utilities and our water, right? So water system is our water system's on a well. Most people's systems over here are on well water. And I remember, it was funny because I remember when we were moving up here in the first place, not only were we kind of concerned, but we had our family members who were concerned. They're like, you do realize that you're going to be on well water. Like, what happens if your well runs dry? What happens if you have this or that? And, it's scary being on a well, right? Yeah, it is. We have propane as our main source for heating, right? Heating and cooking and so on and so forth. So we have a big propane tank out there. And once again, we have people who are like, are you crazy? You're not going to have Southern California gas connection? What the heck? You're going to do your own propane? You're nuts. And we did not, at least at the time, have our own electricity. We were a part of the grid, a part of the Pacific Gas and Electric grid, right? And it was an interesting thing with that is that over the last few years, what have they been doing over here in the hills? Well, during the fire season, if winds get too crazy, if winds are starting to go to become too quickly, I can't even speak English right now. If the winds start picking up and they become too fast, they will shut down the power to entire areas. Thousands, tens of thousands of people go without power. us being one of them, right? So if the winds pick up at night or whatever, and they forecast them and they think that that's going to happen, they will shut down the power, sometimes for 2 or 3 days. That is, they do that so that any downed power lines or anything like that don't spark fires. Now, they never used to do that, but because over the last few years, the fires have just become crazy, they started to make that a general practice, right? And a very common practice. Well, I started seeing that, and I was like, okay, we're good on, the way that we are right now, where we're at, what is the one thing that really determines everything else, whether everything else is going to work? Say everything went down. Say everything, there was a complete revolution in our country, and things go absolutely nuts. What's the one thing that would leave us the most vulnerable, at least where we're at? And for me, as I was kind of going through that, I'm like, you know what? It's electricity. Electricity right now, being connected to the grid, we have 2 tanks. We have 2 tanks that hold about 5,500 gallons worth of water. And you might think that's a lot, but when you're taking showers, when you're doing a whole bunch of different things, it'll last a long time. But it's not forever, right? Well, what happens when the power goes out? 2 things aren't going to work with our at least with our water. 2 things are not going to work with our water. First, the well's not going to bring up any more water, right? So whatever we have in the tank, that's going to be it. And we do have like a little thing. It's not even in the greatest place, but if we went to the well, we could get water. We can probably put a little hose on it and put water into buckets and bring it back up and use that for drinking and so on and so forth. But that's only going to last for so long, right? Like I said, that's only going to last for a while. What people in the city don't realize, and what I didn't realize either, which is cool, when the power goes out, you start seeing what works and what doesn't. Is that your toilets end up not being useful either. It depends on how it actually depends on how your well is. Our well is below our house, so it's actually down the hill, and so it uses what's called a booster pump to boost the water up the hill towards us and create pressure. There are some people who have wells where the well is up above, and gravity creates the pressure down to the house. Now that's ideal. Okay, why is it ideal? Because if electricity goes out, and you're trying to boost water uphill, what's going to happen? Yes, you're exactly right. You're not going to be able to boost the water up. And so now your toilets are done, right? You're not going to be able to do anything. You're eventually, the pressure is going to fade, and you can't take a shower. No water is going to come out of the faucet. You're not going to be able to, even flush a toilet, because there's not going to be any water eventually in those toilets, right? Because there's no pressure whatsoever. And so I figured that those 2 things, the water pressure and lack of water in general, were going to be imagine in the hot summer too, not being able to get water. If not only the grid goes down, but there's maybe chaos just in general. Well, I was like, you know what? We're going to get some energy. So we ended up getting some batteries and solar, right? Ended up going with the Tesla Powerwalls. Those things are cool. Like in like a hundredth of a millisecond, it detects if the grid goes out, and it automatically switches over to battery, or it automatically switches over to battery. And so we got enough batteries to be able to last 24 hours and not have to worry about anything. This came as a result of past experience, right? It came as a result of PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, saying, "Hey, we're going to be shutting you down. We're going to shut off your power." And boom, we'd be out for power for 1, 2, sometimes even 3 days, right? And have to make do and figure it out, right? What people in the city don't realize is that, like, you know, when you don't have anything like that, if you don't have power to push water or anything like that, like it sucks. You end up being screwed. But if you have your own electricity, if you have your own power, you're able to. It's cool because you're able to really truly be self-sufficient, having your own well, having your own water system, having propane, and so on and so forth. You can. And if you don't have propane, you can at least go and use wood fire and so on and so forth. But the big thing is definitely having, in fact, that sounds like a pump of some sort or a generator that just went. I'm over at my kid's dance. But what was I going to say? But yeah, you start seeing, like, what are some of the disasters that could happen to you out in the country. And the same thing goes with your business. This is why it's so important, is with your business, you know, you have to look at what has happened in the past. A lot of businesses were very, very comfortable, right? With having everything in-house, having everybody in the office, having everybody in one place, in a fixed building, and so on and so forth. Even though the ability to work remotely has been around for a long time, probably over a decade, right? Even though a lot of people had been working in a way that was working remotely for quite a long time. Businesses got comfortable, right? Businesses got very comfortable. And because they got comfortable, they did what? They ended up getting slaughtered with the whole COVID-19 thing. Because of COVID-19, those businesses, those companies had to, they had to very quickly find a way to go remote. Some of them were able to make it, some of them were not. I think, I mean, there were literally thousands of businesses that went out of business who had to close up shop because they had put so much into a fixed physical location. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that you should go remote and everything you do should be remote? No. What happens if the internet goes down and you guys are all remote? Now you guys are screwed because you don't have a meeting place. You don't have a fixed location to do anything, right? The point is not, should you go remote? Should you not go remote? The point is to look at to see all of the major things in your business that could lead to disaster. You know, for me, for my business, all of my stuff is remote. Am I taking a big risk? Yes. However, I'm taking steps to fix that and to have some people who are kind of more in the States. And I'm also taking some other actions to be able to mitigate. So if something like that were to happen, I would at least know how to delay any type of legal action or anything like that, like, say, the state or mortgage company or whatever tries to take against me, right? So how to delay, how to ask for moratoriums, how to do notices, how to do all these different things. These are all ways that I can mitigate what's going on in the business. But the way that you can start determining how to avoid disaster in your business is to start seeing some of the things that either your competitors have faced, or what are the kind of disasters that could potentially take down everything, right? Like I said, is your business fully online? If that's the case, what if the internet company goes out? How's that going to affect you? How's it going to affect your employees? What if the electrical grid goes out in your spot? Do you have everybody in one location? Are they all in California? Or are they all in one city? If that's the case and the whole grid goes down there, what are you going to do, right? Do you have backup power? Do you have battery power, right? Are you in a place where there's earthquakes? Are you in a place where there's hurricanes? How's the political landscape in your area? Do you have people in one country, 2 countries? Do you have them in 5 countries, 10 countries? Obviously the more places that you have employees, the better, because if there's an unrest, if there's chaos in one country, or something happens, a disaster in one country, you at least have backups, right? And even if it's just, where the other people in the other country can come and do the other people's work for a while, and vice versa, that's a huge thing, right? Where are you vulnerable? That's the biggest thing right now, is to see, where are you vulnerable? If you're a restaurant, do you have a mobile app? Do you have takeout? Do you have all these different things? Do you have standard operating procedures, which is huge? This is what we teach at prosulam.com, right? And freedomin5minutes.com. Do you have standard operating procedures? Do you have processes? Does that, if a general manager leaves, does that mean that the entire business goes down, right? Where are your weak points? That's the number one thing. I try not to make this super complicated, because it doesn't have to be super complicated. Where's your biggest weak point? Where's your biggest weak point? Just one weak point. What happens when that happens? If you can solve that one thing, you're probably going to be all right, right? Are you trusting too much in one person? Do you have a CFO that nobody else knows how to do their job? How do you know they're not stealing from you, right? Where's that one bottleneck? Where's that one thing that would cause a serious thing to your business? If you can solve that one thing, you'll be good for a while, and then you can move on to the next thing. But the thing is to take an honest look of where you are at, and what is your political climate? What is the weather climate? How is your infrastructure? Like the infrastructure over here, the electrical infrastructure, seems to be going out more and more and more. So I was like, you know what? No, I need to be able to continue to stay in business and continue to do stuff and to be able to survive out here if everything were to go down. So we bought solar and solar batteries, right? Huge. And that is a game changer. Now I don't have to worry about that at all, right? So what's your one thing? What's your one thing that could destroy your business? With Airbnb, what's their one thing? Think of their one thing right now. What is one thing that has been crushing Airbnb slowly, like almost like a boa constrictor, just slowly crushing them? It's the cities. It's city governments. It's the local governments doing what? Basically saying, we're going to ban these short-term rentals. There are places in Hawaii where almost the entire island you cannot advertise. If you do advertise an Airbnb and try and do that, you'll get fined big time, right? Different cities in California, different cities across the United States, different cities in different countries. Slowly constricting, slowly crushing. What's WeWork? What's hurting WeWork right now? COVID-19. And the fact that a lot of people don't want to work totally in offices anymore, right? Same thing. What is your one big thing that could potentially cause disaster for your business? Fix that one thing and you're going to be good for a while. All right, so this is Dean Soto, freedomin5minutes.com. Go check that out. Go to prosulum.com, and I'll catch you on the next Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode.
Thanks for listening to the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Now, head over to www.freedomin5minutes.com and register for our free masterclass and discover how to start systemizing and automating your entire business 5 minutes at a time. We'll see you next time on the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast.